Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Jai Om Vishnu Pad Param Hamsa Parivajaka Charja. Astotara Satyasi Srimad Divine Grace. Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Nant Koti Vaishnavini ki jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivacharya Gaura Bhakta ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Mathura Dham ki jai. Navadvip Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Jagannath Swami ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Jamuna Mai ki jai. Tulsi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande. Hare Hare Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Worship Prabhupada. Om Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Krishna Bhakti Vishnu Adivakti Swami. Namaste Krishna Vidaya Prabhupada Stapali. Sri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Vinaya. Narayana Namaskritya Narunchevam Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tatojayam Udivayat Nashtaprayesu Abhadesu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhavadutamastloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Hare Krishna. Dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. And a Happy New Year to all of you.
New Year,
So this morning, the text is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 15, and the chapter is entitled The Pandavas Retire Timely. So we'll do the next, the text 30. Text 30. I'll read it 3 times, and then anyone who feels so inclined can repeat. Gitam Bhagavata Jnanam Yat Tat Sangrama Mudani Kala Karma Tamoruddham Puna Adyagamat Prabhu Gitam Bhagavata Jnanam Yat Tat Sangrama Mudani Kala Karma Tamoruddham Puna Adyagamat Prabhu Gitam Bhagavata Jnanam Yat Tat Sangrama Murdani Kala Karma Tamoruddham Puna Adyagamat Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Geetam Bhagavata Jnanam Yattat Sangrama Murdani Kala Karma Tamoruddham Punaradhya Gamat Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Prabhu.
Geetam Bhagavata Gnanam Yattat Sangrama Murdhani Kala Karma Tamoruddham Punar Adyagamat Prabhu.
Geetam Bhagavata Jnanam Yattat Sangrama Murdhani Kala Karma Tamoruddham Punar Adhyagamat Prabhu.
Geetam Bhagavat. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Please go on. Okay, we can't hear you. Maybe you muted yourself? Because we heard you start. That's all right. Okay.
Bhagavata Jnanam
Okay.
Yattat Sangramamurdhani Kalakarma Tamorudham Punar Adhyagamat Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, sorry. Geetam Bhagavata Jnanam Yattat Sangramamurdhani Kalakarma Tamorudham Punar Adhyagamat Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Geetam Bhagavata Jnanam Yat Tat Sangrama Murdhani Kalakarma Tamoruddham Punar Adhyagavat Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? Okay, we'll do word for word. Gita, instructed. Bhagavata, by the personality of Godhead. Jnana.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Geetam Bhagavata Jnanam Yattat Sangramamurdhani.
I think electronics is not helping you very much this morning. So if you can repeat, please go ahead. If not, then I beg forgiveness to have to continue with the word for word. Hare Krishna. Gita, instructed. Bhagavata, by the personality of Godhead. Jnana, transcendental knowledge. Yat, which. Tat, that. Sangrama Murdhani, in the midst of battle. Kala karma, time and actions. Tamarudam, enwrapped by such darkness. Puna Adya Gamat, revived them again. Prabhu, the Lord of his senses. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Because of the Lord's pastimes and activities, and because of his absence, it appeared that Arjuna forgot the instructions left by the personality of Godhead. But factually, this was not the case. And again, he became Lord of his senses. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. A conditioned soul is enwrapped in his fruitive activities by the force of eternal time. But the Supreme Lord, when he incarnates on earth, is not influenced by Kala or the material conception of past, present, and future. The activities of the Lord are eternal, and they are manifestations of his Atma Maya or internal potency. All pastimes and activities of the Lord are spiritual in nature, but to the layman, they appear to be on the same level with material activities. It so appeared that Arjuna and the Lord were engaged in the battle of Kurukshetra, as the other party was also engaged. But factually, the Lord was executing his mission of incarnation and association with his eternal friend Arjuna. Therefore, such apparently material activities of Arjuna did not drive him away from his transcendental position, but on the contrary, revived his consciousness of the songs of the Lord, and he sang them personally. This revival of consciousness is assured by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita as follows. Man mana bhava mat bhakto, mat yaji mam namashkuru, mam eveshasi satyamte, patijane priyosi me. One should think of the Lord always. The mind should not forget him. One should become a devotee of the Lord and offer obeisances unto him. He who lives in that fashion becomes undoubtedly endowed with the blessing of the Lord by achieving the shelter of his lotus feet. There is nothing to doubt about this eternal truth. Because Arjuna was his confidential friend, the secret was disclosed to him. Arjuna had no desire to fight with his relatives, but he fought for the mission of the Lord. He was always engaged in the execution of his mission only. And therefore, after the Lord's departure, he remained in the same transcendental position, even though it appeared that he forgot all the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita. One should therefore adjust the activities of life in pace with the mission of the Lord. And by doing this, one is sure to return back home, back to Godhead. This is the highest perfection of life. Oma Gnat Virandasya, Jnana Jnana Shalakaya, Chakshu Litam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Nama Vishnu Padaya Krishna Peshtaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tinamini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Sunyavari Pastatyadi Sitarini. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gaurachise Namaha. Anandali Namaya Vigrahaya Himavya Divecha Vishindaraya. Tasmi Mahaprema Raspadaya Chaitanya Chendraya Namo Namaste. Chaitanya Chendraya Namo Namaste. Chaitanya Chendraya Namo Namaste. Chaitanya Chendraya Namo Namaste. Hare Krishna. So the translation is, because of the Lord's pastimes and activities, and because of his absence, it appeared that Arjuna forgot the instructions left by the personality of Godhead. But factually, this was not the case. And again, he became Lord of his senses. So who is speaking? This is Sutta Goswami explaining what had happened. And there's a lot to pick from this also, because factually speaking, from the material standpoint, we have left home. So it's only by the mercy of the Lord that, through the spiritual master, that we remember something about our home. But many of us have been gone for lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes, several lifetimes. In this particular instance, when the Lord came to perform his pastimes here, he was performing closely with Arjuna. And in this case, Krishna and Arjuna had parted only one time here in this particular instance after the Kurukshetra war. And Sutta Goswami is explaining that the Lord's pastimes were there, his activities were there, all of these were performed when he was present on the planet. Now, much of it was done with Arjuna. And now Krishna had left. Arjuna had found out going to Dwarka that Krishna had left. And he found out something else. His own potency as a Kshatriya had also been reduced, because it is actually through the mercy of the Lord that anything can be done. And this is very, very instructive to us. The Paramatma, Krishna's Paramatma, supervises and also permits our activities. If that was not the case, then why was it that an experienced Kshatriya, well-trained Kshatriya like Arjuna, could be defeated by people who had nowhere near the kind of training that he had? It is through the Lord's grace that activities go on. Even when people are playing the karma, positive or negative, it is still controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead through his multifarious energies. But in this case here, Arjuna is also helping us with something that we need to be very, 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 very careful about. Many of us, we're talking about those who are initiated, and including Srila Prabhupada as Shiksha Guru for some of us who are initiated by his disciples. Srila Prabhupada himself physically left the planet. But he has given several instructions. And what should we do? we should remember those instructions and also put those instructions to practice. So Arjuna, it appeared, as Sita Goswami is saying, that he had forgotten the personality of Godhead's instructions. But Sita Goswami says, factually, that was not the case. He became the Lord of his senses. How important it is that when a personality that has our welfare at heart, like Srila Prabhupada or Srila Prabhupada's disciples as gurus, leave their bodies, and then there are some things that at the time they were here, they had left as instructions and advice. And we go on not only to remember those points, but also spiritual points, but live our life that way and also share that information with others so they also can be elevated. It is very, very important that we do that. As a matter of fact, Krishna says, the one who reveals his supreme secret and shares it is very dear to me. There will be no one more dear than that person. That is the love of Krishna speaking. Because if he tells us that we share that information, we become very dear to him. It means that he wants us to share the information so that those who are lost, thinking that sense gratification will give them the pleasure they want, will now take to this path, the royal path of devotion, as my Guru Maharaj likes to call it, the royal path of devotion, and head home back to Godhead. There was a lecture that I heard. Jonas Varagovinda Maharaj gave a whole lecture, and then people started asking questions, as they normally do at the end of lectures. And one of the questions, I don't remember the question itself, but I remember Maharaj's response to it. He said that once a person has said yes to Krishna, they are on their way back to Godhead. There is no doubt about that. Once somebody has said yes to Krishna consciousness, they are on their way back. The question is, would they leave this lifetime and leave the last one, or would they come back? How much effort do they put in? And how much caution for protection of the Bhakti Kripa do they put in? How important is that to the person, to the devotee? It is very, 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 very important that we don't only practice properly, but we also keep making sure that we don't go through the pitfalls. As a matter of fact, yesterday there was a lecture in Harrisburg, and in the nectar of, it was about the nectar of instruction. We're going through the whole series of books, of nectar of instruction, the whole series of texts, I want to say. So text 2, Atyahara Prayastasya, Pratyalpa Nimagraha, Janasanga Chaluryam Cha, Bhakti Sadvi Bhakti Vinashati. The things that we need to avoid. Atyahara, overeating, over collecting, prayas, over endeavoring. Atyahara Prayastasya, Prajalpa, idle talk, Niyamagraha, obeying the rules and instructions or the injunctions just for obeying it, and not taking it as very important in our spiritual life and practicing obeying the injunctions in that spirit to grow spiritually, or not obeying the instructions at all and just doing whimsical things, whatever we like to sense gratification. Janasanga, not associating, avoiding the association of those who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. And lolyam, greed, being greedy for mundane things. So these 6, Rupa Goswami explains that if we're not careful to avoid them, then that would be sabotage to our devotional kripa. So we have to be very, very careful in those kind of situations. And in that respect, in the purport, a part of it, Krishna was, Srila Prabhupada was saying that we have to be responsible people. And he gave a very, very simple example. And the example was that, say, you're walking on the street and you stumbled upon $100 bill. And he gave 3 different scenarios. One, a person who is in a mode of passion and ignorance say, oh, here's money. They don't think it belongs to someone else. Here's money. I could use it. They take it, put it in their pocket. As a matter of fact, they would take it even trying to make sure that nobody sees what they've done. So that's a thief, or the ignorance person. Or the person, they see it and decide, okay, it's not mine. It's not mine. Therefore, I shouldn't touch it. Now, that person has removed themselves from the offense or sin of stealing because they didn't touch it, but they haven't helped the person who has lost that money either. So I don't want to be part of this. I don't want to be part of this situation. They let the money go. So they are not of help. And then the third situation, which he says we should be about, the person might pick up the money and make the effort to try to find the owner of the money. A real effort to try to find the owner of the money and give it back. That is a person, Sri Prabhupada says, is not only honest, but also wise. Honest because they are not using the money themselves, and wise because they have tried to serve the person who is maybe in anxiety, having lost that money. So this is the mentality that we should be about. I thought it was a great example, so then I thought that I'll share it here. So Srila Prabhupada is telling us that we should be proactive. If something is good for us to do, for mankind, to serve others, to serve devotees and non-devotees alike, we should definitely, when the opportunity comes, take it up and do it, and not be just, oh, I don't want to get involved in this, or what if, what if. There shouldn't be a what if. In fact, when a person says what if, now we talk about the guru and disciple relationship. What if person is actually a third-class disciple? And let's explain. So there is a first-class disciple, there's a second-class disciple, there's a third-class disciple, and a fourth-class disciple, as Bhakti Maharaj explained some time back. The first-class disciple, this is the guru and disciple relationship. The first-class disciple is the one that does a couple of things. One, whatever guru tells that person to do, they will do it. And also, that particular disciple has been around and served Guru for a while, so they know that there are some things that the Guru would expect to get done by the disciple. Some things in his daily routine, or if you go to certain places to preach or to serve devotees, there are some things that have to be in place and some things that have to be done at a certain time. And that devotee knows that and does it without the spiritual master having to ask him or her to do it. So that kind of person is disciple is a first-class disciple. He obeys Guru and also sets up services for Guru that Guru doesn't even have to ask him because he knows the protocol. He knows what the Guru expects and so on. Second-class disciple. The difference between first and second is the first-class disciple knows the Guru's mind where it comes to some things that he has to prepare, and therefore the Guru does not have to ask him. But the second-class disciple does not know the Guru's mind. What he knows, though, is he is a disciple, and Guru's command, Guru's instructions, Guru's requests, Guru's opinion are important. So whatever he hears or she hears about what to do, he or she does it. There is no question of disobedience. That's the second-class disciple. He cannot prepare some things ahead of time for the Guru because he doesn't know what the Guru needs from one point to another. But when the Guru calls him or her and says, please get this done, or find out about this, or prepare such a thing, they immediately make it priority and they get that done. Third-class disciple. That's the one that when the Guru says, please do this or do that, they analyze the situation. And they would analyze the situation along with their own personal situation. And then they go, well, maybe not right now. I will get it done or at some point, but or maybe I'll just have somebody else do it. These are things that they could do themselves. Or maybe I'll go get a first-class disciple who just does everything that you're asking to do and tell them to do it. Coming up with excuses. Rather than doing what they've been asked to do. And then there's also a fourth-class disciple. The fourth-class disciple, well, as you know, we're going first, second, third, and fourth. So fourth-class disciple is even worse than the third-class disciple. The fourth-class disciple has got an initiation from the spiritual master, and that's what they wanted. They finished, they've left, they're gone. They don't do anything for the spiritual master. They do not serve the spiritual master at all. Nothing. So when Maharaj explained that to us, he said we should be at least the second-class disciple. We should obey what Guru says. And the best thing to do is not only obey it, but make it a priority. So whatever you ask, you get it done and get it done as soon as possible. Not put it behind, because if you delay it, I'm gonna do it later, then you're pretty much bordering third-class disciple. So first, second, third, and fourth disciples, those are the definitions for them. Srila Prabhupada says in this, in the purport, a conditioned soul is enwrapped in its fruitive activities by the force of eternal time. The conditioned soul is thinking that I want to do this, and I have these plans, material plans, to make this kind of situation happen in my life. Most of the people think about money and how to prepare this, how to prepare that, on and on and on and on. And then some aims, and Srila Prabhupada, sometimes some aims that people get involved with, he's actually criticized. And one that comes to mind is people who do so many exercises in the gym to make their bodies very strong. Srila Prabhupada says, yes, they make their body strong as if they're not going to leave the body at some point. Because they call themselves athletes and they compete and so on, but that's their situation. People who make all kinds of plans. But the Supreme Lord, Srila Prabhupada says, is not influenced by time, past, present, or future. The activities of the Lord are eternal, and they are manifestations of his internal potency. And not only that, they are also very beautiful, and they are also very, very awe-inspiring. Krishna only can do superhuman things, and that's nothing to him. Like lifting Govardhan Hill and supporting it with the smallest finger of his left hand for 7 days and 7 nights. When he was young at that, physically he looked young. The Lord's body is spiritual. I'm just describing the size of him. So, Srila Prabhupada says, all pastimes or activities of the Lord are spiritual. Again, Janma Karma Chame Divyam, he has said, the one that knows that my activities, my appearance and my activities are spiritual, that person is liberated. Appearance and activities, that constitutes what the Lord does. He's coming and he's doing things. So if a person thinks that they're all spiritual, then that person sees the Lord in the proper perspective. The Lord is spiritual in person or in personality and in his actions. Then that person is eligible to go back to the spiritual world because they will be in a right frame of mind in everything concerning the Lord that they conceive of. So, and Srila Prabhupada, why did he say that? Because he followed it up with some things that the Lord does appears to be the same as people with material intentions are also doing. It so appeared that Arjuna and the Lord were engaged in the battle of Kurukshetra, so Arjuna was using arrows and different mantras and make different things happen on the battlefield. And the Lord was on the chariot, and he was expertly maneuvering the chariot with the horses. And because of his expertise, Arjuna was saved in very, very many situations, very many situations that he could have been hurt. So this was going on. And so the other parties were doing the same thing. They were also shooting arrows. They were also using the mace. They were also using all kinds of weapons. Chanting mantras and making things happen. And people were dying, soldiers. And they were trying also to fight. So it looked like a regular war from the material standpoint. When the person looks at it, it seems like the same thing on both sides. But factually, as Srila Prabhupada was saying, the Lord is executing the mission of incarnation and association with his eternal friend, Arjuna. And Arjuna had promised to fight after Krishna explained what's in the Bhagavad Gita to him. And he says, Krishna said to Arjuna, fully deliberate on what I've told you and decide on what you want to do. So Krishna never interferes with the small amount of independence that we have. And he said the same thing to Arjuna. And Arjuna says, yes, I am convinced and I shall definitely fight. Even though I have relatives on the other side who are against me, I will definitely fight because I will fight for you. I'll fight because you want me to fight. This should be our mentality. As Srila Prabhupada says, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, text 65, Man mana bhava mat bhakto mat yaji mamna maskuru mam eveshashi satyam te pratijane priyosimi. One should think of the Lord always. Always think of me. Become my devotee. Worship me and offer your homage unto me. If you do that, you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. We are to relate to the Lord in one of the 9 ways of serving. And one of them is to become Krishna's friend. And we're making this point because it's not only Arjuna that is a friend of Krishna, but the friendship, which means the love, the heart-to-heart love, we can develop. Krishna always has love for us. We are the ones that are trying to go on with the material energy. But when we make it a big effort on our part to develop love and friendship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then our life changes. Because knowing him to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all we have to do is to submit to him, to surrender and give full trust in the Lord. And that definitely plays a big role in how our life unfolds every day. It's just a question of the consciousness. There was a time, some years back, it used to be stressed to us, Krishna, of course we know Krishna, but it's Krishna consciousness, your mind, how you think about serving the Lord, how you think about serving the Lord's devotees, how you think about serving the spiritual master, the effort that you put in. Everything has to be first class. The Guru says that. So at the beginning of the year, we should make one of our resolutions, everything I do for Krishna and Krishna's devotees should be first class. That is the best that I can do. I put my best foot forward in all situations. And that way, then Krishna will bless us with more ideas and more opportunities to serve. The more one thinks this way, the more opportunities to serve come the way of that person who is thinking that way. Serving in first class. Krishna, there's no reason not to serve first class. There's no reason not to serve first class. Krishna is the most important personality. Why should we serve him in any other way than the best way that we can? And on top of that, that is how Krishna will be pleased with us and will be able to get out of this jail that we're in and go back to our home where there's no anxiety and when there's joy the whole time in service to the Lord. So always think of Krishna, become Krishna's devotee, worship him, and offer homage unto him. In many situations, sometimes when we're serving, challenges come. And the challenges may sometimes get us to the point where we begin to think, can I really put in that much effort? Should I put in that much effort? What is happening here on this side? What's happening here on this side? Some situations are coming up, making it difficult for me to get this work done. Well, in those times when they come up, we have to remember one thing. Krishna has made service not like the regular job that we go to. Krishna says, put in your very best. We talked about do everything first class. Put in your very best. And we also have to be surrendered mentally to the Lord. That whatever you want to see as a result, you do it according to the way you want. So then we become literally not just servants, but like tools for getting that service done. And the Lord would decide how things go. And this should be the mentality of a devotee that is humble. The challenges sometimes can bring us to a point where we begin to think, am I really doing this in the proper mindset? Should I continue? Am I over-endeavoring? Sometimes all these thoughts come up, but one has to then connect with Guru and Gauranga in prayer and say, I am just a tool being used for this. Srila Prabhupada used the word puppet. I'm just a puppet. I don't even know why you brought me to this place when he arrived in the United States, in the West. But I have firm faith. So we also should serve being used with the mentality that we're being used as a puppet. Just like Srila Prabhupada thought. Then Guru and Krishna become the puppeteer, the one manipulating the puppet. And the puppet mentality is a very humble mentality. I'm making myself available. You turn me around, do this, left, right, this, on all the services the way you want to see happen. And I will go along with it. And that is the proper mindset when it comes to service. And anyone that does that, thinking about the Lord as the puppeteer and Guru as the puppeteer, they will never forget Guru and Gauranga. They won't. And one instruction that's been given to us is that we should be constantly chanting the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So this year, if I could ask permission to put my own resolution out there, chanting the holy names of the Lord, I would very much like to chant, and I'm asking for blessings of the devotees, prayers to the devotees, with greater zeal, chant with greater zeal, greater enthusiasm, and chant with greater desperation. And I'm begging that the chanting never become mechanical, because the connection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead with us through his holy name is a huge gift. If you consider the way in which you have to get spiritual credits in the different yugas before Kali Yuga, you find out that we have been really blessed with a very simple way to get the same spiritual credits. In Satya Yuga, you had to meditate for 60,000 years. In Treta Yuga, you have to go through very extensive yagya, sacrifices. In Dwapara Yuga, it was serving the Lord, the deity of the Lord. But you have to do it with such pomp and with such preparation and so much effort. And then in Kali Yuga, you say, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So the main thing about that is to say it genuinely. it should come from the heart. And that's my request to the devotees, that I chant from the heart and be able to serve like that, also from the heart. And if it's your own resolution, then please join me and let's have the same kind of resolution, because it is the best resolution for our own spiritual life. We have to adjust our activities of life in pace with the mission of the Lord. Now, that's the point that Srila Prabhupada says, the end of the purport. One should therefore adjust activities of life in pace with the mission of the Lord, meaning that we, in the way we lead our lives, it should always be based on what the Lord has set up that we have to do. So we take the priority, we make priority the spiritual things that have been taught to us. And even better, we do it in association with other devotees. It's very, very powerful, because man is the social being. Even in the spiritual world, it is still the same mentality, social being. So when we do things with other devotees, it's very, very, very nice. And they help to remind each other. So there's need to do a few things. It's also part of the resolution for the year. So we should take all the instructions from Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra to heart and live accordingly. Srila Prabhupada says we should live life in pace with the mission of the Lord. There is need to plan to elevate one's Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti to Raganuga Bhakti. This is part of the blessings that I was asking of devotees, putting myself out, going out on them and saying, I need help. I need help. It's good to elevate the bhakti by instruction to bhakti from the heart, devotional service from the heart. And we must be greedy to elevate our bhakti to the Raganuga platform. It's good to plan it, but we also have the greed. You should have the greed to get there, to serve the Lord from the heart. So every day when we get up, we have to serve the Lord. We're excited to serve the Lord. And the activities that we do, we immediately start preparing for it at a good time and get to it and get it done with zeal. We should pray for such elevation to the spontaneous bhakti. And for those who are fixed up and we see that they have qualities about devotional service that we don't have, we can copy from them. We can also inquire from them and seriously practice bhakti that way. So another point, sincere internal happiness, it comes from Raganuga Bhakti, bhakti from the heart. And it is shrouded with so much love. That's why we should aim to go after. Our situation has been described, another point, by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Shishastakata, last line of the second text. Dudeva midra idrisha vihajani nanuraga. I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for the holy name. Therefore, there should be the attempt to be so much in a mood of pleading for the Lord to increase our excitement in chanting the holy name, because it will also connect with what we're talking about here, Raganuga Bhakti, bhakti from the heart. So I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for the names of Krishna, but we're begging that when we learn to be humble, and it's explained in the next text, Trinada Pisuni Chena Taro Vasa Ishtana, Amanina Manadena Ketaniya Sada Hari. One should be like a blade of grass, humble like that. One should be like a tree, tolerant like that. Humility and tolerance are very important. And sometimes when people even disrespect us, we don't take that seriously. We don't try to get back at the other person, but we help others with the right mentality. We should be respectful to others, even if we get disrespect from them. And Lord Chaitanya says, in that state of mind, then the chanting will be continuous and there will be tremendous zeal in it because we're giving our lives like that to the Lord. Of course, one should avoid sense gratification. That's important. We also should show extreme kindness to all living entities. Kindness to all living entities. We should be careful not to kill unnecessarily entities in much smaller physical bodies. Every endeavor should be made to relocate them if they're not in a location you want them to be. We're talking about insects and such. We have to be very, very careful. Do the mode of goodness activity, even with them. Srila Prabhupada explains we're not allowed to knock other people out of the apartment. And the apartment he was talking about is the physical body. Krishna has arranged for that soul to be in that physical body. It is not our place to take them out, especially if we just kill because it's convenient. Never be like that. We should be kind and sensitive to the needs of the elderly and also children. And finally, we should pray for more effectiveness in this society. ISKCON trying to change the situation in the world today. The demigods are warning us with all kinds of natural disasters. And how many people even know that because of the slaughter of the cow in so many places, in so many numbers of the cows, that these problems, the demigods are warning us with disasters, natural disasters. How many people know that? Yet it is known in ISKCON, and we have to pray for more effectiveness in trying to change the situation in the world today. If we're going to be puppets, then it's even more reason why we should pray for the puppeteer to use us to get us in the situations where we can make a big difference in the world today. So 2023, we start off like that, and when the Lord and the Lord's devotee, the spiritual master, guiding us, we as puppets can be used to bring about quite a bit of change in the world. And now, just like Arjun was saying, Sridhar Goswami, not Arjun, but Sridhar Goswami was saying, we have to remember the instructions left by Krishna for us. Srila Prabhupada has wonderfully translated all of them and given purpose commentary. We just have to follow them. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. So thank you, devotees, for allowing me to do the service at the beginning of the year. If there are any questions or if there are any comments, could you please unmute yourself and share with us? Hare Krishna.
Kaivalya Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Very nice
Krishna's
class and very, very instructive. Thank you very much. In the beginning of the year, to hear. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. It's for my own purification also. That's why I was begging to be a better devotee, and why there is sadhana bhakti, but there's raganuga bhakti. Why not? It's not like people are supposed to stay in bhakti for instruction only. We put our hearts in it and we grow. And if we want to, if we are greedy enough to do that, then the Lord will make arrangements for us. And so that's why we were praying that way, that we in fact elevate our level of consciousness in this whole process, which takes us wonderfully back to Godhead, away from the anxiety in this material world. Hare Krishna. Any other comment?
Like Like for Raganava Bhakti Prabhu, I cannot think for myself, that having a spontaneous love, because I have to push myself all the time, getting up in the morning, do the chanting, because I have to do, I do it, But Raganava Bhakti is very hard actually. But anyway, that's great. That should be the goal. But in the Kali Yuga, it's very difficult. Thank you.
In Kali Yuga, it's very difficult. And just like everything, just like, the 9 processes are there, and one of them is bandhanam, praying. Usually, when we do things knowing, or we try to do things knowing that they're difficult, we try to ask for help to get it done. It can be done, but it's difficult. That means it's time to ask for help. And the way we ask for help is through prayer. And so, yes, it is there. We can aim for it. The body slows down. Yes, that's there. But the mind should still be determined. It should still be determined. And I'm saying this for my own purification also. Don't think that I don't struggle to get to do things too. Yeah, that's there. And as the body gets weaker because you get older, and challenges come with the body. As I have a ton of them, right? Now I don't even talk about them very much. And still, we have to go on. We're very fortunate to have this royal path of devotion, this bhakti. So yes, it does not mean that when a person says in bhakti by instruction that they can't go back to Godhead. But the sweetness is experienced more, as is explained to us in Raganuga Bhakti. And why not? And why not? And that's why I say, well, pray for it, and maybe Krishna will help us to get there. Hare Krishna. But your point is well taken. Yes, there's difficulty. And if we get to that point, it's even sweeter to overcome the difficulty. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Any other comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Glories to Srila Prabhupada.
It's a wonderful starting of the new year. And here Srila Prabhupada is already saying that even though it appeared that Krishna now forgot all the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, but one should therefore adjust to the activities of life in pace with the mission of the Lord. So we try to, this Raganuga Bhakti is there, but like that Keval Prabhu says, it's in the Kali Yuga, it's getting, and then age also makes sometimes slows down.
Yeah.
But like you say that if we say one time also Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, he will help us. He will help us, I think. That's what I try to do too every day, Prabhu. I try I have that Raganuga. I have the greed. But body is slowing down. Mind goes fast and body is slowing down. I don't know what to do, Prabhu. And I'm trying my best.
Yeah. And that's the important thing. You're doing a lot already by being always present at the Zoom classes to hear. Because your Papa said that's the first interview is to hear. And your commentary now, what you've done now, reminds me of one lecture that I heard in video of it. His Holiness Govinda Maharaj. And he came into the temple to give class. And he went, as many of them do, this is a regular thing, to go to the deities, to go to see the Prabhupada, the Murtis, and offer obeisance. His body had become so weak, but he still wanted to offer obeisances. So, of course, he'd come as guru with his disciples, and then he would offer obeisances. This is all videoed. Offer obeisances in front of Dandavat, just go flat down in front of Srila Prabhupada. But his body was so weak that if he went down, he couldn't get back up. He could not. He still would go down though. And then he'll make a sign with his shoulders, just put his arm like that while he's down. And that's a sign for the disciples the two disciples, one on each side, to pick him up. And then he'll walk to the deities and again down the path, and he knows when he goes down, he cannot get up. So again, he'll make the sign like that, and then they'll pick him up. Yes. And then when he finished, he sat down. I still remember some things about it. He finished the obeisances and he sat down. And after he finished Jai Radha Madhava and the other mantras that he chants, Ananda Lila Maya Vigrahaya, Himavi Divicha Vishnuraya, Tasmi Mahaprima Raspadaya, Titani Chandaya Namo Namaste. He chants that always. He starts his lectures and says, I would want to serve the Lord with all my heart, but the body, the body is so old. It's so tiring to have to deal with this physical body. And so he went on, transcendental lamentation, a little bit about the body. Yeah, it is going to slow down. And mine has slowed down quite a bit. I mean, there's situations that I've inherited. I didn't even know was there, but I was kind of warned about it years back that it is there, and that's now it's kicked in. It's actually, to tell you, it's arthritis, and there's no cure for it, so you have to try to manage. So I've been feeling it for the first time, and it's not easy at all. But we'll do the best that we can, and so the physical body will give us challenges. Sanatana Goswami was also in Vrindavan, was just circulating around Govardhan Hill, and when the body became very, very, challenged physically, he still was trying to do it, but the Lord gave him a Shila and said that just circumambulate the Shila. The consciousness has to be one of wanting to serve the best way that we can. But when the physical body has actually slowed down, our activities, and there's no doubt that the physical body is giving us problems, then we do the best that we can. And the Lord will give the mercy. We'll give the mercy because he's always very, Krishna, Chipapa says Krishna is very kind. We have no idea how kind he is. One time in the lecture, he kept saying Krishna is very kind. Krishna, I heard, this is a recorded, not video, but just a regular audio recording. He kept repeating, Krishna is so kind, he's so kind. And then I heard his voice break, which is like he was getting very emotional, even saying that Krishna is very kind. So he wants us back, and so much has been given to us to be able to just to go back to Godhead. We will get the mercy, not because of us, but because he's that kind. Hare Krishna.
Mother Golokananda.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
She had.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Very nice class.
Krishna's
nice. Actually, yesterday we started our first Bhagavatam by Srila Prabhupada reminding us, how we have to always think about Krishna to become anxiety-less. And today also class also is Manmana Brahman Bhakti in the purport. I think Prabhupada, so his purport. That's why it's so important, to regularly hear about Krishna so that we can be reminded how we have to constantly think about Krishna. And
yes.
Your class also, you're telling like we have to always just chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So that is, the goal, for us, to become free from this material entanglement.
Yes.
Entanglement.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and it's I'm just thinking, and even we hear so much sometimes, sometimes, like we get carried away, and my realization is that as long as you have associate with devotee, who are eager to practice Krishna consciousness, that's help you.
Yes, it's very, very, very important. You will not be carried away to the place where you don't need to be. You will never get away from that boat that takes us from the ocean of nations, keeps us secure on that boat. If you're by yourself in that boat, it's difficult. But when devotees are there with that boat, everything is done in community, helping each other. That's why Sadhusanga is so, so, so important. In fact, in a different lecture, we've been told, I remember this, that we can't do it on our own. One cannot be judge, jury, prosecution, defense, and everything by themselves in Krishna consciousness. Maya is too strong. So we definitely have to have the association of devotees remind us to us. Just like Bharat Maharaj, when he went to the forest, left the kingdom, left the administration, and he got into a situation where, yes, true enough, a deer was dying, a baby deer, and he had to save the deer. But and he saved the deer, and then just relating to the deer and caring for the deer, he forgot his devotion service. But he was by himself. No other person was there. Somebody else being there could have reminded him, Maharaj, you left your administration, your kingdom to come to this place for service to the Lord. And now this has been compromised. Someone else present would have told him. And so it is very important that we have that sadhu sangha. And also sometimes when difficult things happen in our lives and we can't tell everybody, but somebody that we have trust in, we can reveal our minds to. That also comes from sadhu sangha. We have to reveal our mind to someone who is a devotee and get some help from that particular personality. It all comes from the word. So please, and finally, even when we are leaving our bodies, the devotees that would come around to chant for us to remember the holy name, because death is also a very painful situation. And the senses are shutting down. So our relationship with devotees has to be very, 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 very good. Either cordial, if you don't know the person so well, or very nice relationship. And we always should assist each other so that when the time comes, they would also come to assist us to remember the holy name so we can go back to Godhead. Hare Krishna.
On top of this question, I'm thinking sometimes, we know devotion, we have to associate with devotees. Sometimes we get discouraged when we associate with devotees and we start talking about, we go off Krishna consciousness topic. What do you do in that case?
Sanatana Goswami was expert in doing that. When he came to Vrindavan on the request of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he would sometimes go to the villages there. At that time, this village. So he would be asked all kinds of questions, and every one of them was a material type question. Just like you brought up this being veered into material things in conversation. What he did, what people are asking his advice, and what he did was that he would advise based on the material question that's been asked of him, but he will always connect part of it into Krishna consciousness, in the conversation responding to it. He would connect to Krishna consciousness so that the person would get the answer to that material question, but also get some benefit of Krishna consciousness from being preached to indirectly that way. And so in our conversations with each other, we can hear what's being said, but in order to help everybody that's hearing, it's always good to bring Krishna into it and use the intelligence to angle the conversation so that you can bring Krishna into the conversation. And that way, everybody's reminded of Krishna and everybody benefits, and you yourself also benefit tremendously by, in a sense, preaching and bringing Krishna into the conversation. So that's one thing that you can be doing. Just be aware that every time you're having a conversation, somehow by the time the conversation ends, I've been able to say something about Krishna or remind the person about Krishna in the conversation. So think of Krishna all the time and you'll be able to do that too. Hare Krishna. I hope that was helpful. So, any other questions? Okay, so we thank you very much. This year, 2023, should be a year that we go up several steps in our own individual life and in Krishna consciousness and as a society in Krishna consciousness. That is my great hope, so that we will have a greater impact, because people are getting more and more confused about what to do. Politicians are getting more and more confused, and Maya has got them really, really, really gripped very tightly. But we know how to get everybody out also by chanting the holy name and distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. Okay.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Very nice class and a lot of instructions for the
Krishna's
new
mercy.
year. for New Year.
Yeah. Try to follow and get as much done as possible in Krishna consciousness.
To follow all that.
Okay. Vanchakapa Trubhischa Kripa Sunibhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Vaishnav Thakur Ki Jai. Gaura Pramanande Hari Hari Hari.
Hari.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Pariksit Prabhu. Wonderful
Hare
class.
Krishna. Krishna's
Very
mercy, Guru's mercy. Hare
A lot of
Krishna.
optimism. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to
Yeah.
you. Happy Krishna
Hare
conscious New Year. Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jai.